Philip McLeod who's saying, before it's too late, I agree we need to look at this process once and for all. Wakenya wakuje pamoja na tusonge mbele. Okay, sawa sawa. I'm hoping you're saying that as you look at the report as well, Bwana McLeod. Keep those tweets coming in at K24 TV right there. Before we take the break, of course, we're talking about whether it's going parliamentary or popular. And one thing that has come up also, even as you look at all of this, is that now we are seeing the flaws that were there in Naivasha. And some people are wondering, is it a bit too convenient, John, that now we have this particular process and all of a sudden some of the people who are there in Naivasha are now talking about how they had to give up things in Naivasha to make it work, and this is the time we remedy this process. Is this just politically convenient for some players?
I think the BBI was a well-scripted, I would call it maybe like a movie.
To what end? How does this series end?
The way it's going to end depends on who the casualties will be. Because I feel we are going to have a number of casualties. But before I talk to them, I just want to maybe comment on what Arnold said about, I think to me, constitution can be amended. There's no time frame. We can even do it even we have it today and then tomorrow say this thing is not working. I think there's no time frame for us changing the constitution. Is it good for us? Is it bad for us? I think that is in order. Regarding the Naivasha issue that we are saying, it is a script because the casualties that we are going to have are from the political elite. And it is a script that they are trying to sideline either one or two individuals. And it is unfortunate that now it is now the common mwananchi who is going to carry the burden. Mm-hmm. Yes, because all the way from the starting of the report, when the BBI was formed, the way it has been running, it's like these two leaders, the president and the prime minister, had privy, like they had the information of the report is going on. So they're just trying to play with the script. And with the bombers, the way Arnold said, that was just like a movie.
Right.
If it was a state function, to me that was not a state function. Mm-hmm. They would just say that this is like some parties who have come together. But to me, it was reduced into a shouting match, despite even having a special envoy. You know, a special envoy carries the message of the president. It's like a sitting head of state who has come to share the aspiration, who has come to share with you the platform. And then here you are reduced into a shouting match. So to me, that was not a state function. Right. So basically, to me, the report is a script that is a movie, the way I say, is a series. And maybe now we're in season 1 or 2. Yeah, by the time we reach season 5 or 6, we'll have more characters coming in. And now it depends on if it's like you're hunting an antelope. Mm-hmm. So the Swara, who in this script, maybe I'm not saying it is Ruto, but you have to be very clever on how these guys are trying to come and maybe getting close to you. Because based on what the speaker said, I think to me we have to be very careful on where we are heading.
Right. And yes. Even to talk about that, it is on the front page of the Daily Nation, that particular story. BBI blow for Ruto. Speaker rules out Parliament, citing his mandate to approve any motion before it can be discussed in the National Assembly. Muturi says the report has no roots to the House because it belongs to the people, throwing his weight behind ODM leader Raila Odinga. There's a picture there of a very pensive Deputy President William Ruto to go with that particular heading. But even as we talk about this, we're talking about a youth who have experienced a lot of unemployment as well. Layoffs have been happening as well, wage cuts as well. And so even as people look at this 9-point agenda, again, I come to the university student who's probably graduating this year, and they're looking at this and they're trying to see, okay, fine, I can see where you're talking about changing leader of majority to PM, changing CS to cabinet minister and all of these things. But where does Lydia get a job? Where do I start off? Right. And that's the issue. Because he talked about giving them tax cuts. But how do I get a tax cut? I'll just be going and filing nil. Yes. I need a job. I need somewhere to start. Right. It doesn't speak to those issues right now.
So I would like to agree because the report largely doesn't centrally focus on young people or doesn't even give the young people, anything tangible in terms of how do we move forward from here. Of course, we know of the 7-year tax relief, but I'd like to quote a friend of mine who said the Wamlambe's generation is a generation of Tala, Mshwari, and all these apps. You take from Mshwari, pay Tala. You take from Tala, pay the other. So the 7-year tax relief doesn't even work for the young person. And in Article 55B, we have, the government is supposed to take affirmative action measures, including to take care of their social, political, and economic. We do not really see that coming out strongly. I think on the economic, we have integration of, different East African players, but also when you look at integration, what kind of products or goods do Kenya bring to the market? You look at our market, it has a lot of, substandard products. So do you think any other country would want to open up an integrated market like that, to have Kenya bring their commodities to be sold on there? So it's really, it's really a tough issue for the young people. And then we also have the National Youth Council that is very dysfunctional at this particular point. It's been underfunded. It doesn't have, a council, so the secretariat can't really work properly. So I think for the young people, the thought should be, with the BBI report out, what opportunities lie in there for us? Can we then, say and push some of the things that will work for young people? Can we push an agenda that is going to work for the youth of this nation? But as is, it doesn't really speak much to, young people. And then we also have the parenting bit. The parenting bit directly focuses on, parents and the young people who are the youth of this nation. And it's rather vague, because are we saying that the government is going to give us a parenting manual to know how to parent in our own homes?
Those are the questions that are coming up. You've spoken about the National Youth Council, and I jumped to Mr. Arnold Maliba.
Yes.
For someone who's in that youth bracket and is trying to decipher this report to see where their dividends lie in this, away from the noise that we'll see at the rallies as we get to the convention next year, what should they be looking at? What should they be focusing on that directly touches on them?
I will actually speak, I'll start from the youth end, first of all. There is nothing substantive for the youth in that report, because in the first place, there was no young person in that particular panel. They made a lot of noise, and the two principals kept quiet, and they behaved like there was nothing. There was no youth in that particular committee, and they were coming up with a report, quote unquote, that is supposed to take care of our future. So you want to work for the future of young people without them. So literally, and the report is very clear. If you looked at what that report attempts to speak about young people, and you look at sessional paper number 10 of 2013 on employment strategy for Kenya, that other document is more detailed, it's more inspirational, it looks even more current and forward-looking than BBI on the youth factor. So as we get out there, at this particular level, this report is a recommendations report. So what you hear out there is still something you might not be able to act on or make any decision upon. Realistically and technically, from where I see it, the report today needs to get into technical hands to then now come up, because you cannot implement that report. That report is like the Sermon on the Mountain. There are practicals that you have to get to it to actually now then see. It's aspirational, yes, but then it will need some technical hands to look into it, so that every thematic area, then we have got clear frameworks and implementation framework and a matrix to it, to how we are going to look through it. And then those things can be sold to the people. Otherwise, the people of Kenya do not have the time to be sold to things that are amorphous, something that is very huge and not very defined. People need now tangibles. We need to get into that, and then tangibles and practical steps moving forward. So, looking forward, what do you look for? I am hoping that the BBI committee will not subject this report to people back. As in, people gave them these their opinions, which they compiled in the 156-page document. You cannot bring that document back to them. Because from where it is, it's still a recommendations report. It needs to go to technical hands, break it down, come up with tangibles, and then take it back to people for their input and for literally building on it before we then move it probably to any other level.
Let me jump in there, because there's talk of a secretariat being formed, so that, and I assume that would be the technical task force in that particular regard. But also in January, we're supposed to have a convention where we meet again. So what happens? Are they giving it back to us again?
What I'm thinking is that even as they set up that, the report they read is what they collected from the people. So why are you bringing it back to the people in its raw form? It needs now tangibles to be broken down. This is where we are going on this particular issue. This is where we are headed. And by then you realize that, like I was responding to her issue earlier on, is that very little bit of it is constitutional. A number of these things just need a policy intervention. Others are just administrative action. Ensuring that young people have got a job. You really do not need to change the constitution. You do not even need a handshake to create jobs. We do not need we do not need the handshake to actually stop corruption in the first place. Because you had in the first term the president saying his hands are tied, the constitution and everything else. Then all of a sudden the guy is jailing people and doing stuff. Did we change the constitution?
Right.
We did not change this constitution. It's so much about political goodwill and good leadership. So Kenyans out there should first of all look at the report as an indictment on the leadership and what we have done. When you see people fighting and like what we saw in Bomas, as much as I say we should encourage that, again, you need to look at that leadership. And if you feel like you don't deserve it, then do better next time you go to the ballot.
Right.
Yeah.
And also, notably, even the young people, when you look at them, young people do not have bridges.
Right.
So when you're talking about building bridges, young people are wondering, building bridges for what? We do not have boundaries. We relate very well. We do not have, ethno-regional like this. I don't even know what community comes from. But when we sit, we'll commune and have, have a fellowship of sorts. So I dare say that in the technical task force that is being formed, we need a young person to sit there, because there are so many professional young people that are very well capable in terms of meritocracy to sit in that technical group. So we do need a young person there to have the aspirations of young people.
Not one, a lot.
Michelle, I'll come to you as well.
You cannot have a nation of 67% of the adult population are people between 18 and 35.
Yet
and then you
there.
come up with such like an important committee, you behave like you don't, and there are young people who fight for these two people. That was a shame on Raila and Uhuru.
Michelle, I want to come to you this as well, because looking at the headlines this morning, we can see there Ruto allied MPs threatened to snub Uhuru functions, BBI blow for Ruto, Uhuru and Raila grooming Matiang'i for this particular 2022 race. Is it possible to delink the BBI report from certain figures? Because it seems like as long as it moves forward, we'll talk about who is it for, who is gaining from this. Is it Ruto? Is it Raila? And it seems like once they get what they want from these recommendations, then it's done. We move on. Is it possible to delink these figures? And even that was one thing that was said during Bomas, when Raila said he won't be here forever, Uhuru won't be here forever. So let's look at this report without going through a lens of this is for Raila or this is for Ruto. Is it possible, or is that the ends to this particular means that we are seeing right now?
Before I jump onto that, I will just like to finish off this thought on youth opportunities and economic empowerment. When we were developing the country status report on the African Charter on Democracy, Elections and Governance, it's an AU document. We had key informant interviews with very important stakeholders in governance, democracy, and electoral processes issues. And somebody threw this question to me as a young person. He's not a young person, but he threw this question to me. He said, young people make 70% of the population in Kenya. Everybody knows that it's a known fact. If we keep asking for opportunities like we are entitled to them, yet we are aware that we make 70% of the population, what are we trying to really prove, or what are we trying to show? What about these other people who don't form part of the 70%, or what about these other people? Why he say his idea was, why do young people feel entitled? Why can't they just stand and take these things instead of keeping asking?
Instead of asking, go out and take it.
Taking what you want to take. So I'll leave that to
We are in a constitutional democracy. We live under the rule of law. That question was very blind. Because it's one thing to be a majority and still another thing to also lack voice. And that's what's happening, that you have got a majority that is silent, a silent majority or a powerless majority. Because the mechanics of governance is not just about numbers only. There are also resources. And when it comes to resources, numbers do not even sometimes count.
But
people
which
with
people
money.
participate in political processes? Which people are supposed to question good governance?
The question is, involvement and participation are two different things. Being involved and participating, participation means it's active. Involvement could be passive. You are just part and parcel of it. Like, this cup is part and parcel of this conversation, but what is it doing? Nothing. It's just involved.
Anyway, now to answer your question on if it's possible to actually delink
this
BBI
report and what we are seeing in the debate from the key political figures of the day.
I'll go back to the points that I sensitized in the first place. To me, my personal opinion, this is politics. This is the politicians' work on a day-to-day. They are doing their work. They are doing their daily bread activities. So for them, they have already identified, that is my thinking, they have already identified what is in it for them, and they're pushing for their own agenda. And now, for the people who are not part of this political hulabaloo on a daily basis, they are just supposed to understand that, you know what, actually, this BBI business, this handshake business, is just politicians trying to get what they want out of it. Me, as a common Mwananchi, the common Atieno, the common Oyo, what is in this for me?
Right.
So then if I understand what is in it for me, I will pursue that. I will not wait for somebody to tell me that this BBI is proposing for this, this, and this, so you guys go for this.
Right.
No,
I think politicians also need to understand that politics is not a career.
Yeah.
Leadership is. So that's why we see them recycling themselves all over. But to the new entrants, do not get the fact that politics is not a career, leadership is. So the reason why we have, you know, the BBI and everything centered around individuals is because in March 2018 we had, you know, Uhuru and Raila shaking hands. So the outlook they've given the nation is that, you know, it is Raila, it is Uhuru. The messaging there, the body language and everything just communicates two people. They like to call themselves institutions. So two institutions coming and shaking hands. And then recently we've been hearing, I'm for completing the journey with Uhuru. We do not hear, I'm for completing the journey with Uhuruto, which was the campaign slogan. So Ruto has been precluded from this completing the journey. So he's no longer in the journey. And we even have Matiang'i coming and trying to whip Ruto. I mean, what kind of power does Matiang'i wield to whip Ruto, you know? So it communicates that Matiang'i himself wield more executive power than Ruto himself.
And that's interesting because that's exactly what I wanted to go to with John on this. Why are we still talking about this report as if Ruto is on the receiving end? We thought we were going to have a very powerful PM. What we saw in the document was pretty lackluster for what people expected that position to hold. And we are still seated here saying that Ruto is, his back is against the wall. This report is up against him. Why? And we can see the headlines still talking about him getting the short end of the stick as far as this is concerned. Why that fixation?
As I said earlier, number one, this is a script. Secondly, we cannot delink the two leaders from this BBI report because it's about them. That's what we cannot.
It's not about us? It's not about,
it's not about us.
The nation?
It's not about the nation. It's about Uhuru and Raila. That is a fact. Secondly, when Matiang'i comes up blazing guns, it's not about what Matiang'i is saying. It's about who has sent him to say that. Because if he says that, when I speak here, I represent the president. And tuko tuna mtu mmoja kwa boma, mzee mmoja kwa boma. What are you trying to insinuate? So Matiang'i, being the super CS, is just doing a well-cut job for the president.
Right.
We cannot deny that fact. Secondly, in the next few months, we are going to see a lot of casualties. And if I was in the deputy president's shoes, because it is a fact that this is a marriage where we usually say, like, you know, when you are in love with someone, in the morning you leave very early, you hold hands when you're going to the maybe bus stop. At 10, I'll text you, hey, baby, have you taken your tea? And they'll say, oh, I am good. At lunchtime, I'll say, hey, have you taken your lunch? Oh, I'm having a headache. Have you taken maramoja? In the evening, I'll still pick you up. But you see, where we are now, this is not the case. This is a case where we are now being forced to... Now, the guys who are cheering up, maybe the Raila side are saying, situluambiwa ataachana. You know, this thing that is happening. So it is a fact. We are, in the next few months, we are going to see a lot of political game, and it's like a musical chair. How maybe flexible we're able to rock that chair, it depends. But if I were the deputy president, the signs are there. Starting from the bombers, that was season 1. I think, to me, he's yet to see more. Right. If the super seers can come and say, wachana na kibisho, ili mtu yangu, you know, it is a lot. And just the following day, we are being told that, okay, now the speaker is saying this thing is not coming to parliament, it has to go to the people. So it is a script. And we are yet to know who is the casualty. Right. Yeah, but all the guesses are out there.
Okay. Maybe we are not even dealing with the right report.
Yeah, someone said, you know, someone said just before after the report was launched, someone was saying, has Raila been duped? And me, I was asking myself, what if is not Raila? What if there's a report that is just being waited when the committee of the experts will be formed, and then it will be just thrown there, and then availed, and then we go to the referendum. And you know, with the Wanjiku, as long as you are told, hey, Baba amesema, BBI ndio hii, Uhuru amesema, and then we just pass it. So I think there's more to what we are seeing.
Right.
Yes.
And that's a very interesting angle you've brought in there. But before I come to the second probably report that's waiting according to I'll come to Michelle on this. Why this fixation that even before, from the moment the handshake happened, up until when we've gotten the report, it's always been what it seems like Ruto's back against the wall. Every headline we see, what's going on? Why is Ruto now being left out of this matrix? It's Uhuru and Raila grooming Matiang'i according to the Star. BBI blow for Ruto as well. People just sit down. For a foreigner coming into the country, they think that this whole BBI report and task force was to remove one man from his political position. Why that fixation with the deputy president?
Well, what I would say is that's interesting. That's an interesting question. I feel like you're putting me on the lights, but it's okay.
But just give your opinion on why you think things are as they are.
For me, I would say this like he's insistently said, this looks like a script. So the people who understand what is in it for them are trying to put a certain figure out there so that, you know, this is news and this is what usually happens. If it is so much out there, there is a certain way in which the people that you intend to consume your information will consume it.
Right.
So I really don't understand if it's about Ruto, if we now go to the political nitty-gritties of it.
Right.
I really don't understand if it's about Ruto and being painted a certain figure, a certain picture, and about Raila and Uhuru. But what I would say is this is a narrative, this is a script that is already being peddled, so it is up to the common Mwananchi, the common Otieno, the common Oyo to decide how they want to decipher this information and put it out there. And maybe just to finish up on the role of young people in this is, I feel like the biggest challenge that young people are facing in this, be it the young people in politics or the young people that are casualties, is the lack of visionary leadership. Like, you see, the people that they're competing against are the what would I call it? The oldies in politics. So they have been in this for long. They have finally gotten to understand it. But you see, young people who've just gotten into, whether they have been voted in or whether they're just politically participating by virtue of voting and doing the monitoring and evaluation, is I feel like they still don't understand what really needs to be done. So they are learning at the job. That by the time it gets to a point where they have actually learned, it's either too late or they become like the oldies in the politics. And you see, for me, I feel like that should be maybe something like the Kenya School of Government, just to make sure that it is sort of a level playing ground. Kenya School of Government should be compulsory to
before you get into a leadership position?
Or immediately after, so that you understand what's up, you understand what's expected of you before you actually just throw yourself out there.
Okay. Arnold, you threw a span in the works talking about probably another report that might make its way in here somehow.
No, because from the instruments that commissioned this particular work, you would expect that the report that will come out will be what I would call a deontological report. That it's something that is working because it has to be. But when it came out, you look at it, it's very utilitarian. It's serving everybody. It looks like it's a consensus document. If we really needed to leapfrog from where we are, if we needed to jump, we would not have, you know, at some point people felt this thing is fake. It doesn't look like what we put in money, and you have had people complain about that. But this is the problem we have. Somebody has told the president that he's too young and he doesn't need to retire. Those are the issues we are dealing with, even if that's why I'm talking about another report somewhere. That's why Atwoli has said that continuously, and at some point we started feeling like probably Atwoli is more closer to the presidency, to the president, more than we think. Because the way he will say and put out some things and they come to pass. So somebody has told the president that he's too young. Never mind that he'll be retiring at 61, as in when his term ends, he will be 61. And in this country, the retirement age is 60. But he still feels that he's young. Then there's the succession bit of it. Why there's a lot of noise in Mount Kenya is because there's need for succession. And that's why not so many, you can't hear a lot of noise about BBI. All action, even during the weekend, was within Mount Kenya. So the succession in Mount Kenya, there is no clear successor to him, and there is also that feeling by a few people, a few of his handlers, that he's still too young, so he should come back. Probably he retires the youngest president ever we have ever had. Those are the real and living issues, and because Raila, on the other side, has always wanted to become president. He's also wanted to become a statesman. So the two of them, and you look at the ODM side now, cheering at what is happening to these other people, forgetting that just the other day, they're on the receiving end. The Matiang'i who now they actually are hailing and saying he's good, he's doing fine, and they're standing behind him, is the same man they were blaming in 2017 for doing all those other things. So you look at our memory span as a people, and sometimes what we really need for ourselves. You know, the maxim that an injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere. Just as he wasn't doing it right when he was dealing with the post-election processes, the pre-election processes and stuff, he's still wrong when he gets out and says that there's only one president, when he forgets that in the Constitution, the president is not a person. We have got a presidency, we have got an office. The president does not appoint the deputy president. So you asked her why it always feels like it's Ruto who is on the wall. As in, he's definitely, and he's obviously being put on the wall because, number one, he's a front runner. Two, there were promises, and the president said repeatedly, yangu kumi, ya Ruto kumi. We have had, and there is, the good thing with technology nowadays is that you don't run away from what you say. So that was there, and all of a sudden he's not speaking about that. He's even saying that he doesn't mind being a PM, something that I think we have flogged that horse several enough times. So just to move on, I think the issue of succession, and I'm talking about specifically the Mount Kenya succession, is where the problem is. Okay,
we'll take a short break right then. Even as we come back, as we talk about succession, we also want to talk about the Matiang'i factor in all of this, why he's gaining more and more prominence in this particular area. Of course, as Super CS, some
he's
people say...
a
boogeyman, you say?
Okay. He's a puppet, whose hand is in him.
Right. Yeah. Okay, we'll be talking about that, of course, as we come back after the break. And also, even as we look at that, the country also dealing with these heavy rains that have poured across the country. Are we prepared? Because some people are saying that right after these floods, in a couple of months, we'll be talking about a drought. And okay, where did all the rain go to? We talk about that after the break.